This week's episode of Screen Talk is sponsored by Amazon Studios presenting Sound of Metal. Now nominated for 6 Academy Awards for Best Picture, actor Riz Ahmed, supporting actor Paul Raci, original screenplay, editing, and sound. Also nominated for a SAG Award for Best Actor Riz Ahmed and 3 Film Independent Spirit Awards. Sound of Metal is now streaming on Prime Video. Welcome to Screen Talk, IndieWire's weekly movie podcast. I'm Eric Cohn, the executive editor and chief critic, joined as always by Ann Thompson, our editor-at-large. We are at another interesting turning point in award season with various headlines piling up about other shows and what they tell us about the end of the finish line for the Oscars. We have some indications of what that evasive show is going to actually look like, and we've been some of us seeing movies and talking about things that have nothing to do with award season. But let's start with the obvious stuff. So, Anne, maybe you can just bring us up to speed in terms of what the past week meant from an award standpoint, because a couple of things happened that were pretty crucial.
All right, so we had the Writers Guild on Sunday night, and the Writers Guild gave us more information about the support, at least from the writers, of Promising Young Woman, as opposed to Trial of the Chicago 7. So Aaron Sorkin got beat by Emerald Fennell. This is mighty Aaron Sorkin, you know, scribe of the gods, right? But what seems to be going on, A, Netflix, B, populist, soft-edged entertainment for the masses, D, old school, white, male, established, being upset by a younger woman from Britain with her first movie, literally her first movie.
Although she
the
did
Writers
do
Guild,
an entire, we got to give her credit. She did do a whole season of a show.
Yeah,
so.
And that's one of the reasons she won, is that the Writers Guild is also TV writers. So she has support from all of them from the TV side. And she's an actress. People know her as an actress. So but obviously people love Promising Young Woman. It seems to represent the upstart, the surprising, unpredictable narrative that took people aback in a good way.
It's a timely movie, but also it's a weird risk-taking movie. It's very unpredictable, and that's what I appreciated about it. You could argue that tonally it's uneven and all this stuff, but when I watched it, I never expected certain things to happen, even though in certain ways it is a predictable movie up to a point. It's a fascinating way of sort of playing off your expectations, whereas Trial, as you say, it's Sorkin. You know, you could picture that movie in your head before you see it, for better or worse.
I, as a writer and a student of screenplays, really respect what Sorkin did in terms of taking all of those different characters and threading them and taking the 2 time frames and giving everybody their moment and having all these different things play out. It's a very complicated little puzzle that he put together and then delivered with all those great actors. But I think that, as you say, people have seen this and they're familiar with Sorkin. Those rhythms are very, very familiar.
Whether you're Aaron Sorkin or Wes Anderson or Terrence Malick or whomever, that kind of a thing becomes an issue after a while. And I guess it raises this question. I mean, we knew that in Best Picture, Trial was really not a front runner, even if it tried to establish itself that way early on. But now it seems like we have this question of, in the screenplay conversation, where does this leave somebody like Sorkin, who in theory is an Oscar heavyweight, when, I mean, obviously he's not up against Fennell for that, but you know, you have serious competition in that category too.
Well, I guess what I've been trying to get to is that if he won the Golden Globe for screenplay, actually, Fennell won the Critics' Choice Awards, so that was a sign that there was strength in this category for her. I don't want to make too much of it, right? What was the next thing to come up? The next thing to come, and then Borat won, but again, that was in adapted. In that particular case, the front runner for adapted, 2 front runners for adapted, The Father and Nomadland, ahead in the overall scheme of things of Borat, weren't eligible for the Writers Guild, so they couldn't win. And that's one reason why Borat, which was a nominee for the PGA, which was the next thing that came up, which was last night, so Wednesday night. So the PGA, we all expected Nomadland to win, and Nomadland won.
Yeah, I
And
remember
that
we were
means,
talking beforehand. Is it, can Anne write this story before it happens or not? And the question
yeah,
was,
yeah, it was pretty
yes.
easy. Yeah, so the answer is yes, and the answer is also we can pretty much decide. You know, unfortunately, Eric, I know you're not the biggest fan of My Octopus Teacher. That's going to probably win best documentary,
Why is this
and
all being pinned on me as if I am the
I
one
have my
guy?
issues as well. I'm rooting for Collective or Crip Camp or something. Time, you know, I
The
think
mole
I thought
agent, man.
Time might even win the PGA, but no, it was the popular Netflix movie. It's so clear talking to people how much they love it, and they don't want to hear anything negative about how manipulative
It's
it
like
is or
kicking a
anything like
puppy or
that.
something. I mean,
Pardon?
that's the thing, though. It's like I understand the appreciation of the filmmaking in that movie up to a point. I just don't think that it's particularly well executed at the end of the day, especially when you look at the other movies it's being compared to, and they're such different movies all across the board. But they're much.
It
I mean,
touches people's
collective,
hearts, Eric.
collective.
In the
Come on.
end, in the end, I mean, Crip Camp touches people's hearts too, in a big way. But in the end, this was definitely a heart tugger, and that's going to be the reason why. Also, because everybody saw it on Netflix, it really had buzz. It had word of mouth, which is why I watched it pretty early on. Before, I don't think Netflix even, they didn't even, we talked about this.
We have
I
gone
don't
over
think
this a
they
few
ever
times, but it's
thought that
fascinating.
this was going to be an awards contender. I know
But
they
that
didn't.
is a unique kind of phenomenon to the situation we've been in the last few years, that you could have a distribution platform with the option of seeing what resonates and plucking something from obscurity and then investing in it. I mean, I
Well,
think
it's the old
that's
Harvey
fascinating.
Weinstein
I
universe. You
suppose,
know,
I
Harvey
suppose,
Weinstein always had a ton of movies. He
but they
threw
have
them all
more.
out
Netflix has
to see
more.
which ones would stick, and then he backed those. I mean, that's old. That's old news. But anyway, the idea is that the other thing that won was Soul. So we can assume
It's a done
Soul's
deal,
going to win
more or less.
animated feature. So
Yeah.
if there was going to be an upset, it didn't happen. It
But
did
we
at the
should.
WGAs.
If we rewind for a second, though, what would be that upset? Because what I thought was, if there is a movie that could upset in Best Picture, once we had the nominees, it would have to be Minari, right? Because Minari is a widely beloved movie. As you say, it's quite likely that it will win supporting actress, but it's in all these other major categories, and everybody talks about it. Is there a
I think
I don't
SAG
know.
is the chance for that to win.
Right? So we
It would
still have
have to
that
win
open question.
SAG. It would have to do that. It would have something would have to upset because Nomadland isn't up for SAG anyway. So that's an opportunity for Trial or for Minari.
Right?
This is an unusual year, though. Look at what
Very
happened
weird.
at SAG. You have three SAG ensemble movies. That's supposed to be a sign of huge strength at the Oscars. You have three of them that didn't make Best Picture. It didn't even make Best Picture.
Yeah.
So you have, One Night in Miami and Ma Rainey and Da Five Bloods all not making Best Picture.
That
And the one
certainly
that
makes
did
sense.
make Best Picture was Judas. And that was, a little late breaking to be the front runner at SAG. So
Right.
that's what's going on there. So but Minari was in that lineup, and it could be the one.
And there is this sense I get. I really like Minari. I love Nomadland, and I think that talking to people about both of those movies is one of those annoying Oscar season phenoms where these movies are great. They're not really similar entirely in ways that you should be comparing, but if you were to put them side by side, you can really get a sense of some people are in one camp and some people are in the other camp. And I have talked to a good amount of people, maybe not a lot of people, but some people who are not the biggest Nomadland fans. It's not exclusively the most revered movie of award season, and there are Minari people, a lot of actors who think that
Actors
movie is,
like Minari,
yeah, and that's a
actors
big
like Minari.
branch.
That's really why SAG is a possibility, but I don't think it's going to win anything except supporting actress. It even if it does win SAG. I think that the reason Nomadland is a bigger movie than Minari. Minari is a farmland, rural drama, family drama, beautifully made, beautifully shot. It's gorgeous. But Nomadland has a different kind of scope, and it takes on
Vista.
something, as we know, we've talked about this before. The working with the non-pros, the looking into the eyes of a certain kind of marginalized, poor population, and listening to
Yeah.
them speak. It's really it really does, and I think filmmakers recognize, and I think this is why it won the PGA. People in the movie business recognize how challenging and difficult it was, and how much artistry is involved in the kind of camera work, in the kind of setting up of those shots. There's real fiction filmmaking going on in real locations with real people.
And the other thing that's fascinating about this is that I'm sure that these movies have been seen, well, Nomadland, I'm sure, has been seen fairly widely, but it certainly hasn't crossed over into popular culture the way that some movies do. I don't know if Trial did either, but it's an open question this year.
Trial is popular
Just
on
how
Netflix.
widely people. So I guess what I'm trying to suss out here is how much is there a wider awareness of the movies in contention for Oscars beyond the Academy? How much are people
Inside
caring
the
about it?
Academy, there's no awareness of them. I
Which is
talked to this
strange.
90-year-old woman who got her screeners and looked at them and didn't know what they were. She had no clue what they were. A lot we take for granted that the world is online and that we're all paying attention to the same stories in the big newspapers and in the trades. And a lot of people aren't. A lot of people have been paying attention to politics and COVID and
Yeah,
family
COVID,
members
COVID,
that they
COVID.
can't
Yeah,
hug, stuff like
which is
that.
the both the challenge and the opportunity for this year's Oscars show and Steven Soderbergh and company. And this past week, we got a window of sorts into their thinking with this memo they sent to the nominees, which I thought was fascinating. And personally, I mean, again, I'm not the best case study for whether or not people are excited for the Oscars because I'll be watching no matter what. But personally, when I read this memo, it made me more excited to tune into this show and the way they're cooking it up. No Zoom speeches. You have to be there. Tell a story from the microphone. The way that they're thinking about doing this thing with only the nominees and their plus ones in Union Station, I just started imagining something that could be actually really compelling TV and also a good platform for a lot of movies that are worth talking about that maybe some
That's
people won't have
part
heard
of
of.
what. Okay, so part of what's happening here is that before we get to the Oscars, there are very few films that have any big footprint. And I think Judas is actually one of them, which is interesting because it happens to be the one that's gotten released in theaters. It's
That's
actually
true.
having a theatrical release.
They'd
That's
have that right.
why
Yeah.
Judas is so hot. It opened February 12th, and it is now in New York and LA.
Well, an HBO Max.
Playing in the Academy's backyard, assuming that vaccinated people are going back to the cinemas, which I did. We'll get to that in a minute. But in the meantime, the I'm excited too. I am too. But these are movies that are going to be branded by the Oscars in some ways, and maybe grow some of their footprint after. It's just hard to imagine what would have happened if some of these movies had a proper theatrical release. It would just be a different story. The Father's benefiting from it too. Now they're all playing. It's working out. They're all playing in theaters now. But I don't know how many people have gone back to the theaters, or how many of the art houses that would ordinarily play them are even showing them. I mean, the Landmark, which is the resident location for Academy viewers seeing movies in LA, hasn't opened yet. I mean, it's about to, I think tomorrow, but it hadn't been open until now. What was the other thing? All right. So the issue with the show itself is that they're experiencing a certain amount of blowback. And the blowback has to do with the fact that the publicists are actually going into the Academy and trying to figure out itineraries and trying to figure out travel plans and who's going to be where and how and when. And
People
if
traveling
you're
internationally. I mean,
if you're coming from outside, you have to have
Europe, South
quarantine for
America.
14 days, maybe on both sides.
Yeah.
If you're inside this country, you have to have 5 days of quarantine. if you're coming from outside of the state. And there's all sorts of questions of, are they going to be masked? Are they inside? Are they outside?
Yeah.
Where are they? So I got it from the Academy that they're both inside and outside, at least for now. Fluid situation. And there's been a meeting that was supposed to take place between the publicists and the Academy to straighten out all the how-tos, and they kept postponing it because they were trying to figure it out still. So there's a lot of issues.
Challenge, but this has been a logistical challenge that people have faced for all kinds of different events over the past year and change. So there's so many precedents, and I'm sure
they're asking for dispensation on the Zooms.
That is just bizarre, because come on, what exactly? I mean, I don't personally want to sit at home and watch digital pixelated acceptance speeches. If I was directing that show, I wouldn't want to. I completely understand the logical reason to do the show in a way that is more satisfying for people to watch. And
they may have to do something where they let the foreign travel people. I think the Globes did some of this, where they gave them hotel rooms and set up cameras, and someone like Rosamund Pike, she was in a hotel room with cameras set up.
Why not pre-record a speech and run it if you win, so at least you have the material? Basically,
that's what they did at the PGA. Basically, every single nominee recorded an acceptance speech, which is one reason why they were so bad. They were really boring.
Maybe that's not the best thing. I mean, ideally,
it was seriously, it was terrible. It was terrible. So I mean, I wouldn't want anyone to watch these guild shows. I mean, usually the WGA show is really entertaining and there's lots of stuff going on. It didn't happen that's what they did at the PGA, and I would think that would be over Steven Soderbergh's dead body.
I'm sure it's going to be fascinating to look back on this afterwards and get all
Jesse Collins.
There's going to be so much resentment and infighting and all this kind of stuff. But also, I mean, I don't really know what people want to get out of this. I mean, having Zoom speeches on a TV, we've seen that. We saw the Golden Globes. It doesn't work. It's bad TV. So fighting for that, it doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit anyone if the acceptance speech, is interrupted by bad Wi-Fi, and it doesn't help the Oscars either. So, and people at home, if they're actually tuning in, they don't want to see that. So I think I think people need to be practical about this and stop.
Yeah, but I do feel some sympathy for the folks who are coming in from out of town. You got
to just embrace it. They got to embrace it as an opportunity. I mean, I think that in some ways,
but also they're dealing with countries where there are spikes in COVID and things are not necessarily going well.
You're coming from Romania, or you're coming from Europe, other parts of Europe where things are really bad. I can see that is an issue. That isn't it. But it's a tough situation. We've been making tough decisions a lot over the past year. It seems to me like if you're producing a show, being sympathetic to somebody's situation at the expense of doing that show is not necessarily the best direction to go. If they won an Oscar, they won an Oscar.
All right. What are we talking about? Are they going to care if Alexander Now is there to accept for collective? No.
Exactly.
They're going to care a lot if Glenn Close and, not to put too fine a point on it, there aren't very many movie stars who are even nominated this year.
Glenn Close is going to come, right? She's going to come.
Glenn Close is like the biggest. She's and Anthony Hopkins. Hopkins lives in Santa Barbara and Santa Monica. So that's not a problem. And Glenn lives in Montana or something, so she'll get here. But there's going to be some. They want Viola Davis to show up. They want these people to be here.
But the other thing is, we don't.
And Daniel Kaluuya, he might win.
Yeah, I think he might go. I mean, what I'm curious about is how they deliver on the presenters front, because we don't. That's where you can really curate and bring some star power out beyond the limitations of the nominees. And obviously,
they can throw those presenters into any location that they want, as long as they're safely distanced. I think the Dolby is going to be for the musical performers and and they can control that in a more. They're going to control both locations in terms of movie set protocols, that
Right.
kind of safety levels, and so there's going to be some testing and some what they do on movie sets. That's what the quarantines are all about.
And most of the talent's going to be familiar with that already. So
And willing to do it, I think.
we're in a different world than we were a few months ago in that respect. People are starting to feel more comfortable. I mean, especially if they're vaccinated, in trusting the protocols around them. I mean, people who might say before, yes, this restaurant is open, but I don't feel comfortable going there, are now starting to reconsider that. And I think that sort of direction may be constructive for an event like this, which is still several weeks away. So we'll see how the numbers change and all that kind of stuff.
Well, if I can testify as someone who's been vaccinated,
Yes, please do.
I'm definitely breaking out all over.
It's the roaring 20s, right?
I've
All
gone
over
inside a restaurant for the first time in a year. I've gotten myself a massage.
Wow,
I got
that is bold. And yet
I
here
did.
you
I got a
are,
massage.
healthy.
I mean, everybody's wearing masks. Certainly at a health place, everybody's wearing masks. The restaurant, though, when you go to I mean, everyone else is gone except me. But when you go to a restaurant, you got to take your mask off. So that's a bit of a leap of faith. But when you recognize that you're actually vaccinated and that weeks have gone by since your second jab, you're really pretty safe, as long as you're not picking it up from someone and giving it to someone else. You're okay.
Right. Use the masks when you need to, but trust the science. That's the bottom line with all of this stuff.
Right. So then I went to the movies.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about your movie, Anne's trip to the movies?
And then I played a poker game.
Well, that you could get sick from in all kinds of different ways. You can
we were all
your money.
double vaxxed. Imagine a seniors poker game. All of us close together, throwing down the cards. I broke even.
I want to see that Netflix series.
I did well. but it was we were like giddy school children, jumping up and down and hugging and it was wonderful.
Wow. Bold.
Wonderful.
So all right, so
the movies.
The movie
so I ordered online. That's how you have to do it now. I picked a movie that I knew was bad, but that I was curious about, which was Doug Liman's Chaos Walking, which is a bad sci-fi western starring very dull Tom Holland and a very dull Daisy Ridley. I do not recommend it. And it has this sort of high concept thing that the men can hear each other's thoughts and the women can't, can hide theirs. And so there's this gender dynamic, there's this weird haze CG thing on people's faces when they're speaking their thoughts. It was very bad.
Sounds
really
like
bad.
A weird dream I had and then spent the next day trying to figure out.
Yeah, so David Oyelowo is playing a preacher. Okay. Mads Mikkelsen is the mayor. Okay. Cynthia Erivo, the rival mayor. Okay. Really, really bad. So then I go to the Westfield Mall. There's lots of people there with their masks on a sunny weekend day. I go into the AMC 15. There's a line, and I've got a code on my phone, as if which is what people do. You shove your code at the guy, he scans it and says, go to 14. I go up, I skipped the concessions where there wasn't anybody there. And I went in and sat in my assigned seat, which was a recliner. And during the trailers, which were fabulous trailers, the seat started to rock and roll and jumble and
stupid 4D thing.
Yeah. It was a Dolby house. I was in the Dolby house.
I saw Bad Boys for Life that way last year, and I can't say that I embraced the experience, but I certainly understand how it exists to make a kind of movie going opportunity more worthwhile for people who don't go to the movies very often.
Well, basically, I didn't notice it until King Kong versus Godzilla versus King Kong came on. And I really sat up in my chair. and looked at that one, and I went, wow, my eyes were popping, my jaw was dropping, and then my seat was rattling. But
You
it
felt his
was
footsteps.
really I had seen the trailer for that movie without thinking about it particularly, but when you saw it on the really big screen, like Cruella looked fantastic on the big screen. When you saw the two monsters go at it with the laser fire and all the rumbling, it was fantastic. It made me want to see the movie. And I actually got Warner Brothers to give me a screening of it, and I couldn't go last night because I had to
But it's
cover the
worth noting
PGA.
that Congress. I still haven't seen it myself, but publicists were reaching out and trying to get journalists to see this movie on the big screen. And this is
You
similar to the
resisted?
I couldn't go, but they did make links available to people, and I thought it was a fascinating situation because I don't believe anybody no journalist I know saw Tenet on a link. Now we're at a stage where most studios will make that available to you, but when you have you are speaking from experience that this is a movie designed to be a theatrical event movie, and the studio is obviously making an effort to message that through the coverage the movie receives. So
It knocked my socks off, I have to say, and I wasn't expecting that at all. And then there was but the other thing I saw a trailer for, which I was quite, you know how you, I sit there looking at trailers and I go, oh, that's not going to work. Oh, that's going to die.
like a lot of
Oh,
people.
that's a complete failure. Oh, that could be an Oscar
Yeah,
contender.
yeah. There's always
Or
that
yeah, yeah.
10-second
And this
moment afterwards where you make the judgment call,
yeah, you
right?
do that, and I'll be sitting with somebody. I'll go, oh, that looked really good. What do you think?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and so there was this like Irish romance that looked like it might be pretty good. But then Mr. Nobody, what's it called? Nobody.
Nobody.
Bob
Mr.
Odenkirk.
Nobody is actually I think a Jared Leto sci-fi movie. Um, Nobody. I saw it. Did not see it in a theater. I saw it on a link, but I had a great
It
time,
looked
and
good. It looked like it could
I'm
be a
sure.
big hit.
I think
Especially in downtrodden pandemic mode, if you
Well,
see what I
that
mean.
is the thing. It's a movie designed for payoff. It's written by one of the John Wick guys. It's directed by the guy who directed Hardcore Henry a few years ago, which was like a first person action movie, and it has that kind of comical intensity to it, where it's like these long takes of fist fights that like keep going way longer than you think they're going to, or a car chase that's completely absurd, and the guy who escapes out of the trunk using a fire extinguisher or whatever. Like it's got all this stuff that's almost like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote type of action, and that's very satisfying. It's not as satisfying, I think. It's not as soulful as John Wick, but Bob Odenkirk is dialing down the Better Call Saul thing. It's a very different kind of performance, and the movie is so self-aware that as you watch it, you're kind of like rooting for it to succeed, to find a way from one action scene to another action scene. As this guy who kind of like
So
retrieves
yeah,
the suburban life comes back and becomes
right.
a
So he's
badass.
a trained killer who's been
Yeah,
hiding on in suburbia, and he's pushed too far,
and that's the movie.
shall we
That is the
say?
whole thing. There's a
Yeah.
really lame villain in this one, not particularly satisfying villain, but Christopher Lloyd plays Odenkirk's dad, and I don't know how much of a performance I'd say it is, but it's fun to see him kick ass a few times. This 82-year-old guy,
No, that's a good. I wouldn't mind
so
that. No, it
it's
made me
good
want to
stuff.
see the movie, and I just said this is going to be a big hit. So I was in heaven, and now I'm demanding if I can get it. I want screenings. I really do. I want to see these things, and it's a return to the theatrical world. I'm excited by it.
So as we
I
wrap
want
up,
more. I think people
I
will go
think
back. I really
I,
do. As soon as
I think
there's
that's
a
sort of the question now. Is
I think it takes time for vaccinations to sort of sink in. And what that's
psychological
about
process.
is that we're all still confronting our primal fear that's controlling us, and we've survived this long. And it's hard to realize that there's really nothing to be afraid of
You're right.
if
Well,
you're
that's
vaccinated.
as we look ahead to the next few weeks. This is usually the time of year where we start to anticipate summer movie season, and I think not only are we going to be anticipating it now, we're going to be anticipating it at the moment when people want to go back to the movies.
I think
So
they're going to go back in droves. I
what? But
really
the
do.
movie's got to deliver, though. I mean, we better
I was
see some
willing to
stuff
see a
worth
bad
watching.
movie. Well, how will I feel when I go
Well,
see
but
a
you
good
are a case
one?
study of sorts, but not the ultimate one. I suppose Joe Popcorn is a different category than
It
Ann
felt
Thompson.
good. Here's what it hit. What really hit. I don't know if I think I've explained it, but the scale of it really hits you when you've been
Yeah,
deprived.
yeah.
That's the
You
the
can't.
visceral impact is much bigger.
Well, and it's true. I think also for other kinds of movie experiences. I mean, I like you said before. I think we both want to see Nomadland on the big screen. I mean,
You know what else it is? Is that yes, I really do want to see Nomadland. I feel like this is everybody already knows this, but when you're in a theater and you're succumbing, you're kind of giving up everything. You're letting everything go while you rest in this quiet, safe place for a period of time, and you don't have to do anything. And you're
passivity
not
is such a
going to do
luxury.
anything else, and you're not
Yeah.
going to be distracted by anything else. And I think we take that for granted
Oh yeah. Yeah.
when we're constantly distracted. I heard some apocryphal story of some Academy voter that took 8 days to see Nomadland,
Jesus, that is
in its
terrifying.
entirety.
A person
This
should
is a
not be
very
allowed to vote.
disturbing thing.
Oh my gosh, what an absurd! Yeah, a friend did ask me, "Is Minari a good movie to go see in theaters?" I was thinking about going to see that, and I said yes, because I mean, look, go see anything, but a quiet little drama that you've committed to in a dark room, and you're probably not going to leave it until the credits roll for all kinds of reasons. I mean, the movie benefits from that, not just you. So there are so many. When you go through it, there are so many practical reasons why this particular 90 to 120-minute experience, however long it's in our culture, benefits from this form of presentation being part of its
No
lifespan.
question. And
And
there's
that's
something else for those of us who tend to get stressed out. Hello, you know,
I don't know
um,
what you're talking
you're
about.
you're relaxed. You're relaxed. You don't have to think about anything else. You
Well, that's
you
always
give
good.
up. You let it all go and you fall into this other world. That is the goal.
Unless you're watching a movie that's designed to make you really uncomfortable. But that's a whole other thing, because then you really do need to commit to being there so you don't shut it off. So next week, what's going on? We got some more award shows coming up, right? What's around the corner?
Yeah, I mean, April 4th is SAG. April 11th is BAFTAs, and they both have a lot of impact. And in the meantime, putting some panels together, some more
One baby
videos.
step at a time, we'll get through this weird Oscar season. Well, and I hope you enjoy your weekend, whether it's indoor or outdoor, playing poker or going to a movie theater. But welcome back to society, and I'll see you soon.
See you later, alligator.